I'm going to tell you a story. No. Stop. No intro. This game doesn't deserve one. This isn't some fun YouTube video breaking down a super awesome experience. This is a tragedy. I'm wearing all black for a reason. This is because this is a funeral. It's the funeral of the 2016 Atlanta Falcons. This was a complete mess. This was something that has been ridiculed and made fun of still to this day, and it will continue to get made fun of. There's a reason why people have 28-3 flags. You know, you go by New England, you say 28-3, everyone knows what you're talking about. This is why when you go near Atlanta and you say 28-3, you will get beat up. This game is way more important than just one chapter in a story, but for Shanahan, this is the most important chapter in his story. This is a tragedy, but a pretty fun one to talk about too. The game would start off slow for both sides. Atlanta would get the ball around midfield very early on in the first quarter. This is a 3rd down and 5 situation, so an opportunity for them to potentially get some yards and get the first down and try to take an early lead into Super Bowl. It's going to be a cover 1 play that they're going up against, the cover 1 blitz, and they have those routes right there, so really a couple of options here. You know, really, ideally maybe the slant route, which is up the top. That's definitely a route that can work out against this type of coverage, and you also have sort of almost a little bit of a rub route, not exactly, but a couple of crossing routes. Either one of those routes could potentially work. However, Ryan really has to make a decision, kind of has to make a decision quickly of where he wants to throw this ball to. He's going to decide to go through the slant route. However, one thing is going to happen here where actually this is not going to be a cover 1 blitz. It's going to be a cover 1 hole, and a New England player is going to actually drop back into coverage and take away that slant route. Really kind of a good play call by Bill Belichick here, or by the Patriots in general, to kind of fake as though they're going to do a cover 1 blitz, but actually have someone drop back into coverage. Because now when they want to throw over the middle, no one's open because of that New England player in the middle, and it actually results in a sack, and it was a fumble, but it was ruled down and correctly ruled down. It ended up not being a fumble, but still, really, at this point, you know, if Kyle Shanahan outsmarted Bill Belichick the first time they played each other in the game, you know, back when Shanahan was with the Texans, this time, without a doubt, early on, this is going Bill Belichick's way. They would get another opportunity here. This is the next 3rd down. This is just a couple minutes left in the first quarter, where those are the 2 routes that, again, Ryan could potentially throw to. He has to make a decision. Those are the 2 routes that he likes on this play. However, after the ball is snapped, this just played very well by New England. And quite frankly, you know, that's one thing. It doesn't really matter how good of a job you do calling certain routes. Sometimes teams can just win their own one-on-one matchups. They can defend plays well, and there's not much you can do, and that's what's happening right here. New England is covering very well. Again, Ryan has nowhere to really go with the football, and he's, again, going to get tackled here. They cannot get a completion on 3rd down, and, you know, that's kind of what the Patriots were doing, is they were, although on 3rd downs, doing a great job of covering. So early on, this isn't going too well for Atlanta, and they were going to have to try and figure something out. So on their next drive, this is their first drive of the second quarter, Shanahan had an idea. His idea is, let's just do what we've been doing all season when we need someone to make a play. I mean, hell, let's do what we've been doing the past 2 seasons when we need a play. Go to Julio Jones. Really, I mean, since Julio Jones has been in Atlanta, he's been a go-to guy, so they're going to decide that he is going to be a big part of this offense on this play. It's going to be pretty similar to what they like to do. They're, you know, play action. Julio Jones runs over the middle. You fake as though, you know, have the entire offensive line run block, essentially. Really sell this play action, and you're just relying on Jones to get open. If he doesn't get open, this play probably isn't going to work. But you know what? Shanahan, Dan Quinn, and Matt Ryan like those odds because Jones gets open very frequently, and that's what he's able to do. He does get open, wins his one-on-one matchup, and with the other New England players taking away the middle of the field, moving in to try to stop the run, this allows for enough separation for Ryan to be able to make the throw. And now they're able to get the ball a little bit further down the field. They get the first down, and they get some confidence. They now know that they can beat this New England team. So later on, they will go back to the Julio Jones well. This is next play in the drive, cover 1 play, and Jones is running that route. It's a deep route, going to get to the outside. Again, this is the type of thing where all he has to do is win his one-on-one matchup, but keep in mind how difficult this is. I mean, Jones is running deep down the field, and he's cutting away. So think about the angle here, where Ryan is going to have to make this throw, and it's not as big of an angle as if he was cutting over the middle, But of course, New England knows that Atlanta loves to run plays over the middle, so they're not going to allow Shanahan to be able to beat them over the middle. If he's going to beat them, he's going to have to beat them to the outside. And with Jones, he's running a deep route here because they want to get a chunk play. But in him running a deep route, this is going to mean that he's going to have a small window. It honestly kind of reminds me a bit of what Shanahan would do with Brian Hoyer. Obviously Hoyer didn't have anyone as good as Julio Jones, and he was nowhere near as accurate as Matt Ryan. But because of New England's really good defense, it almost kind of becomes one of those situations where it's much more difficult for them to methodically move down the field, and taking some shots deep actually makes a lot of sense in this scenario, and Shanahan knows how to run an offense like this. So that's what he's going to do on this play, and it works out. Ryan takes a step back. Jones is once again able to get open and make a really good catch, and they get in field goal range, and with his game still 0-0, they have a prime opportunity to take the lead here. They're going to run the ball on this play, but they're also going to do it in a relatively unique way, where the blocking concept is relatively simple. You have your left guard and left tackle double team an interior lineman. You have your center and your right guard, both just one-on-one block two New England players, so that part is pretty normal. That's nothing really surprising there. That's not unique. But you're just going to notice that, they don't just have Freeman run up the middle. We've talked about before, they don't like just running straight up the middle. They like to be a little bit creative. So watch how they're going to fake as though Freeman's running to the left side of the screen, but then he cuts back and is able to pick up a huge gain like that. Again, this is that big play style offense. There was a decent chance that would have gone for negative yards if a New England player figured out what was going on and made a play, but they were able to fool New England and they were able to pick up some yards. So, Shanahan, as a play caller, things are starting to work for him. He's starting to get pretty smart here. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. On this next play, they're going to do the exact same thing, but just flipping it over, where they're going to have Freeman start off as though he's running to the right, but you're going to have a couple of Atlanta players that are going out to block the two New England players who, could potentially have time to move around. They're going to run over and they're going to block those two players to the right side of the screen, because Freeman is then going to cut to the left side of the screen. And again, watch how well this works out. Watch how Freeman starts off in that direction, but is able to cut over. And because of those blocks, he's able to run over and get close to the 5-yard line. It's all a game of deception. It's all a game of getting them to think that you're doing one thing and doing the other thing. And it's working out really well right now in this drive. And they want to finish this off. They don't want to just kick a field goal. They want to get into the end zone. And so what they're going to do is, this is what you see on the screen. A bit to unpack here. First, if you look at the blocks, the ones that are in yellow, you notice that you're going to have the center, the left guard, and the left tackle. What really is going to happen is that the left tackle just blocks someone straight up. The left guard is going to move over to block a linebacker, and then the center is actually going to have to move over to block 90. That's going to be a kind of difficult block right there. But if they can pull it off, there will be a gap in between the guard and the tackle. But also there's something else going on here, where 32, he's going to move over to the left side of the screen because there's a receiver also moving over there, so he's kind of just following him. So while there is another New England player and another Atlanta player there, really the only guy who could actually be in the play on that side of the field is 25, the one who is circled. But they have a plan for that as well. Basically, the idea is that it's kind of like the RPO in a sense, where you're going to basically just have Freeman wait until 25 crashes the gap. The second he does that, you just have Freeman run to the other gap. It's very similar to playing rock, paper, scissors and letting your opponent make their decision before you make your decision, and it's going to work out. 25 crashes in between the guard and the tackle, so Freeman just bounces to the outside, gets an easy touchdown, and that wasn't a touchdown due to their insane talent. They have insane talent, and it obviously helped with, Jones getting open a couple times, making some good plays, but that was largely a touchdown just due to Shanahan being smart. Shanahan understanding what he has to do. Shanahan is outsmarting the New England Patriots here as he did the last time they played each other. This is just going really well for him. And, it would continue. Like on this play, what's going to happen here is that New England, they're playing man coverage because you kind of have to play man coverage against Shanahan. He can pick zone coverages apart. But the problem with that is, of course, that, there's Julio Jones. So you have to double team Julio. Julio is running the route that's closest towards the middle of the field. So, the New England player who's in charge of covering the zone closest to the top of the screen, he will be taking over, Julio's route deep, of course. You can't let Julio one-on-one in the end zone. That's a bad idea. But in doing that, it's now going to cause Austin Hooper, the other player running towards the end zone, to be in a one-on-one matchup towards the end zone. They have so many options, this can work. Ryan does throw it to Hooper, who is able to make the grab, and they get the touchdown. They have so many weapons that even their tight end, who is their fourth best option, can consistently win one-on-one matchups deep. So this offense is working now. It's not just the fact that they have a lot of talent that helped them on that play, but also Shanahan knows how to use this talent. And on paper, this is a very even matchup, but because of Shanahan knowing how to attack this New England team, this is turning from a very even matchup into really a kind of lopsided matchup. The offense, they got outsmarted a bit early. It's really rolling now, and they know exactly what they have to do. Once they get rolling, it's very difficult to stop them. And if you want to talk about plays that really allowed them to, take advantage of the fact that they have a plethora of weapons, there's few better plays, honestly, all season than this one, where, forget about playoffs, forget about the Super Bowl, just in general. This is going to be a cover one play, and you see those are the three routes that are probably the best routes. You have Julio Jones running a deep route, you have Austin Hooper running a route over the middle, and you also have Gabriel running a deep route, and I said those bottom to top. So typically, if you're a defense, what do you do here? You have two extra guys, so what are you going to do? Probably you'll have the guy who's deep. He'll make sure that he's covering Jones. You don't want to leave Jones deep downfield. We've already talked about how, leaving a 6'3" freak of nature deep downfield is a recipe for disaster. And you also have Hooper over the middle, and we've also talked about how New England is clearly making it a part of their plan to take away over the middle shots because the Falcons are so great at those types of plays. So those two players will probably be like that. And if they are like that, well, now Gabriel is the guy who has a great one-on-one opportunity. And he is the kind of guy who, especially when he's not going up against number one defensive backs, he can win those matchups relatively quickly. And watch how he is going to own his matchup. His defender falls down, and while safety does come and make a pretty hard tackle, they're able to get the ball all the way in field goal range just like that. I feel like typically when there is a big comeback, almost always it's because a team wasn't able to convert in the red zone, right? Like that seems to be a ton. It's like, I think about the Seahawks against the Packers, where the Packers dominated for most of that game, but they kept getting field goals. They weren't able to get touchdowns. And because of that, Seattle was able to hang around, and eventually they got a few touchdowns and forced overtime and won the game. So, Atlanta, they're up, but they don't want that to happen. This is currently sitting at a 3-score game. It's an 18-point game. A field goal keeps it a 3-score game. Slightly better, but ideally you would like to get the touchdown here, make it a 25-point game. That's a 4-score game, and it really becomes tough to try and win at this point. So this is the play they're going to dial up here. It's man coverage, and what they're going to do is they have a lot of players running over the middle. In fact, they're also going to have their tight end run just straight into an edge rusher. The edge rusher is important to run into, though, because what he's going to be doing here is he's in charge of making sure that he covers the halfback. It's actually not necessarily that edge rusher. It could be either edge rusher. It's just whichever way that Tevin Coleman, the halfback, runs to, then he just follows him. That's the way this play is designed. New England doesn't have somebody who's just in the middle of the field who's always in charge of covering the halfback. They instead have each edge rusher, whichever one comes closest, cover the halfback, which makes some sense, kind of similar to how in baseball, where if the ball goes to the left side of the field, well, then the second baseman is the one who covers second base, whereas if it goes to the second baseman, then the shortstop covers second base. Well, it's similar to that in this sport, very similar. And so this pick is going to be very important, but it's a very good pick, and Coleman is able to be quick enough that he's able to make the catch, turn the corner, and get into the end zone. And just like that, they have an insurmountable lead that could not be ever defeated, 28-3. There's a story called the Jiu-Jitsu Prodigy, which is basically the idea behind this story is that it's someone who, it's a young kid, about a 16-year-old kid, and he was great at jiu-jitsu, the martial art. He just got it. He was a prodigy. Every time he would go up against somebody, and he would just destroy them. And so, he kept doing this, and he was just continuing to win. eventually he went up against sort of this champion of sorts. He always wanted to be a champion, and all of a sudden he just got this random opportunity to become a champion himself, to go up against him. So this is a awesome opportunity for him, right? Way early in the process, he's already getting an opportunity to get his dream. But basically the way the story goes is that once things started going poorly for him, it was actually a very even matchup, but once things started going poorly for him, he didn't know what to do. He had never played from behind before, and eventually, like, he dies or whatever. I don't know. But that's the story. It's the idea is that no matter how talented you are, you have to know how to, do something even when it's an uncomfortable situation. In a sport, you're never going to be up 100% of the time, so you have to know how to play from behind, and you're never going to be behind 100% of the time, so you have to know what happens once you're up, and you have to know what happens once you're up and things start to go poorly. That's what you have to do, and so that's kind of the idea, right? I mean, you see the clear, obvious comparison, right? The Atlanta Falcons, okay, I get it. This is a team that they never were tested. When they finally do get tested, things go poorly. However, that's not true with the Falcons. They were tested. They were tested a ton. I mean, they lost 5 games. 5 games is more than a typical team that goes to the Super Bowl loses. But even with that, they really didn't know what they were doing. But there's no excuse for them. The New England Patriots would score a touchdown, but they would miss the extra point, making it now a 28-9 game. So the extra point doesn't matter too much. I mean, it's the difference between an 18-point game and a 19-point game, so not really doing anything there. Maybe matters a little, but it's really not the end of the world. And for Atlanta, they're actually in decent shape here. You notice how they're already on the New England side of the field, but it's not because of anything that Shanahan did at all, actually. It's entirely because of the Patriots. They decided to go for an onside kick, which was maybe a bit of a questionable decision in hindsight. I mean, they have been successful at onside kicks in previous years, but they were unsuccessful here, which now means that Atlanta has the ball already in New England territory, 1 first down, and they can at least kick a field goal. But again, that doesn't do too much. The difference between 19 and 22 points isn't too crazy, but you can at least burn some more time off the clock, and who knows, maybe even get the ball into the end zone for a touchdown. So anyways, what they're going to do, what this play is that it's going to be essentially a cover 1 blitz, but you notice that the New England player who's deep is a lot closer to the top of the screen than he typically would be. And the reason why he's doing this is because he just wants to make sure that he's covering Julio Jones. That's typically what they've been doing. Jones is going to be running deep, and they want to just make sure Jones isn't all alone deep. He's a 6'3" freak of nature. Don't let him all alone deep. That's probably what they have tattooed on themselves to make sure they don't forget that. And so because of this, it now means that they have to find a different option. And one of the options that they see is Taylor Gabriel. He's running a route that's going to be cutting over the middle, but then he'll run back to the outside. So, for Gabriel, this is definitely a pretty good route for him. This is something that he feels like he can be good at because, again, players are definitely expecting for the Falcons to run plays over the middle. That's what Shanahan likes to call. As we've seen before in the past, this is a route that can work out, and it can work out very well, especially in this Shanahan offense. However, when it has to happen, there is a blitz, and it is going to take a little bit of time to develop because they have to get past the first down marker, and it's actually just not going to take enough time. Ryan just doesn't have enough time. He's going to end up getting sacked, and really, I mean, it was actually well covered. Gabriel was never able to get open anyways. Sometimes good defense beats a good play call. That was a fine play call. It wasn't anything crazy good, but you know what? It really did. It had a good opportunity of working out. It just didn't work out on that one. And, at this point, basically, a lot of the strategy has been, okay, well, let's have Julio Jones run deep, and let's hit other guys underneath. And it makes some sense, and it has worked out to have some success. But Shanahan, when he's sitting on the bench, kind of had a thought. He was standing on a sideline, not being able to call plays, obviously, when his team is on defense, and just sort of thinking, well, what's some other way we can do this? And he got an idea. New England would kick a field goal to make it a 16-point game. There's under 9 minutes left to play now, and he's kind of thinking, well, we could continue to do it this way, where we have Julio Jones run deep, try to set something up underneath, get a first down, or we could get a little aggressive with it. So this is what they're going to do the next play. Almost identical, right? You have a player run deep. You don't have the player run shallow. You expect the safety to stay deep with the player who's running deep. But The player who is running deep is Taylor Gabriel, fast guy, someone you don't want to allow to just be one-on-one deep like that. But the player who's going to be running over the middle is Julio Jones, who, clearly Atlanta loves to throw the ball to, and clearly New England, they love to double team. They do not want to allow Atlanta to be able to have a straight shot like that. They just don't. So, they're just basically going to say, hey, we're taking Julio Jones out of the play. And, Shanahan is thinking, well, what will that set up? Oh, right. That could set up having one of the fastest receivers in the league, having a wide open one-on-one matchup to run a go route in the fourth quarter to put us up 3 scores and put the dagger into the hearts of the biggest villains in sports history. So let's do that. And that's what they're going to do. Gabriel made a move. He gets wide open. I mean, this is it. This is the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan just made the perfect play call for Atlanta to win a Super Bowl, and it was brilliant, and, this is it. However, there's one problem, and that problem's name is Dante Hightower. He's going to get the Matt Ryan. He knocks the ball out, and they lose the football. This is the biggest swing in maybe sports history outside of the Malcolm Butler interception. I mean, okay, there's a couple other plays, but, this swing is so huge. I mean, you talk about a touchdown that at this point, it's a 16-point game. The touchdown puts them up 23 points, and it means that New England has to score 3 touchdowns, 2 of which have to be 2-point conversions. But since they weren't able to get this, now New England has the ball just on the door of scoring a touchdown themselves. They only need to go, a couple first downs, and they're in the end zone. And that's what they would do. They would get the 2-point conversion, and now it's just an 8-point game. I mean, you talk about that swing, and what it all came down to was Dante Hightower. He didn't pick up the blitz. That's all that happened. He didn't realize there was a blitz, and by the time he did realize it, it was too late, and Hightower was able to make the play. If he realized there was a blitz on that play, this is a touchdown, and everyone credits Kyle Shanahan for his amazing play calling in this Super Bowl, and to this point, it has been amazing. You know what? I'll say it. I mean, that's just a brilliant play call in the right moment, and a player screwed up. One player made the mistake, and now just like that, they were not able to get a touchdown. When countries started developing nuclear weapons, there was an idea of how they should make the button that causes them to go off, what they should do, because they don't want a president to just hit a button. They want it to be really more difficult for them. They want them to really feel the weight of what they have to do when they hit that button that's going to kill so many innocent people. What they were going to do is they were going to pay somebody a good chunk of money to basically have that button be put right next to their heart. So if they never need to use a nuke, then that person will be fine, live a happy life, and get a ton of money out of it, so good deal if that happens. However, if they do need to use the nuke, what the president would have to do is get an axe himself and cut that person open, take out the button, and press it to make sure he detonates the nuke. Basically, the idea behind this is that since you're going to kill so many innocent people, you have to then be the one who is actually ripping somebody apart to really see how deadly it can be. I'm sure some people wish that Kyle Shanahan had somebody who had a button close to his heart that was for passing on a Super Bowl play when you're up in the fourth quarter, because he likes to do that a lot.
So now you're here again, knocking at my door.
The kickoff to get Atlanta the football back would be an absolute disaster. They would end up having to start this drive at their own 10-yard line. So, poor field position, and now they're only up 8 with 6 minutes left, which is terrible. I mean, this is plenty of time for New England. If you go 3 and out, New England probably has multiple opportunities to try to get the ball into the end zone. So, this is not a good situation, and quite frankly, Atlanta has to do something here. They have plenty of field to try and run out the clock, but honestly, it seems more likely that they just need to get the ball into field goal position so they can kick a field goal and, make it a 2-score game, or it would pretty much be over. And so they had to get something going, and they're going to get a little creative right off the bat, where it's going to sort of start off as though it might be a running play, but it isn't, and they're not really going to sell the play action too well. They do have a couple of receivers running over the middle, so this is a pretty typical play, something you'll see teams do relatively frequently. And you see that there is going to be that New England player, the one I have circled, he's going to basically just, be in charge of covering the middle of the field. And the second he realizes this is play action, he's going to try and get back. And so Shanahan is going to have a stroke of brilliance here. Now, in football, it's illegal to run a pick play past 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. It's an illegal play. It makes sense. You can't have guys just running into other guys before the ball is thrown. It's pass interference, basically. So, what you can do, however, though, is if that New England player was running in a certain direction and your route just happens to be in that direction, well, then if you make contact, well, you're just running your route. That's a legal play. So what that route in the middle of the field is going to do is it's going to run very close to what that New England player is going to do. They're running play action, and they know that what New England likes to do after they realize it's play action is sometimes run backwards like that. And so when this play action starts, that Atlanta player is going to run into the New England player, quote unquote, accidentally, which allows Freeman to get wide open, and he's able to pick up a huge gain just like that. Is it being a bit, kind of looking through the fine print of the rules to make sure you're not breaking them? Perhaps. I mean, you're designing a play that's basically allowing it to be that that they're going to run backwards, which is going to allow you to basically have a illegal pick play. It's kind of a bit sneaky, but I think it's brilliant. I mean, it's not against the rules, and so why not be creative like that? Kind of a stroke of brilliance by Shanahan. And just like that, they go from bad field position to at midfield, only needing a field goal to put the dagger in the hearts of the Dragons that they've been trying so hard to slay and been really struggling to late in this fourth quarter. So okay, you have the ball at midfield. Let's not get too clever, right? Let's just run the football, see if we can kill some clock and maybe pick up a first down or two that way. But it's really difficult to run the ball against a New England team that knows you're trying to run the ball. On this play, that's the blocking concept. The center blocks the nose tackle one-on-one. Then you have your right guard and right tackle double team a New England interior lineman. One will then get off to block the defensive back number 23. And really, that's the key block right there is, you have to do that double team and get off to block that other player. But really, watch how number 90, watch how he's really just not going to allow anybody to get through. He completely does a great job there, which allows for a New England player to easily run over and be able to make a tackle. So, okay, you tried something, it didn't work out. That's okay, it's not the end of the world, but now you have another decision to make. You could decide, okay, let's not risk anything. Let's just still decide, okay, there's 5 minutes left. It's now a second down. We can still run the ball one more time. Maybe on third down, try something. But, I think Shanahan is sitting here saying, listen, 5 minutes is a lot of time. They have 3 timeouts left, so we really don't want to give them another opportunity. It's more important to try and kick a field goal right here and make it a 2-score game, or maybe even get a touchdown, than it is to just kill another minute off the clock. That doesn't really do too much. That's still plenty of time for Tom Brady. So they would call a pass play, and it would be the greatest catch maybe in Super Bowl history. Certainly one of them, where again, it's going to come down to Julio Jones. Now, Julio had a couple of plays early on, but New England really made an effort, especially after those first couple plays, to double team him on basically every play. They were taking him out of the game, and it had some varying success. I mean, you saw that the other guys weren't always able to get open, and, obviously the one time it really did, pressure was able to get there. So varying success, but Shanahan at this point is kind of just going to say, you know what? Screw it. If we're going to lose this game, we're going to lose it by trying to get it to our best player. That's what we're going to do here. Jones is running an out route, which actually makes some sense. I mean, the New England player who's, going to be double teaming him deep, he's closer towards the middle of the field. But what I love about this route is watch how Jones is going to run it here. He runs deep, but then he's going to run towards the middle, which allows him to get just enough separation that he's then able to jump up, make the catch, and somehow stay in bounds to what was the greatest play in Super Bowl history. You know what? I'll say it. In terms of just sheer athleticism, from the route ran itself to the actual catch, the awareness to be able to get the ball and keep both feet in bounds, the throw from Matt Ryan while on the run, this is, under the circumstances, one of the greatest plays you will ever see. And this was why Shanahan said, let's go to the Julio Jones well, even though they have been taking him out of the game pretty well so far, because he's that good. Let's trust our best players. Sometimes the best strategy is the simple one. Give it to Julio Jones. Give Julio Jones the football. That's what they did, and it worked out tremendously well. I mean, this is easily one of the best plays you'll ever see. I could talk about it all I want, but it's truly remarkable. It's unbelievable. So at this point, what are you going to do? I mean, you just saw the tremendous play, but again, now you're in field goal range. So obvious decision at this point, right? You did what this drive was supposed to do. Get yourself a field goal, make it a 2-score game. But, okay, it's first down. Let's just run the ball, see what happens. That's what they're going to do here, where really those are the main blocks. There's not a ton you have to look at, but the left tackle and also the other Atlanta player who's out the block, those are kind of the key ones right there. It's kind of a clever play. You get a receiver who runs over and blocks an edge rusher, which seems kind of difficult. But, when you think about the good angle because of the surprise block, it actually makes some sense. And now you get an offensive lineman who can run over and try to make a block, which will make things a lot easier for Freeman. So this is actually a pretty great play on paper. This is something that makes a lot of sense to do. And, Atlanta clearly at this point has still saved some of their better plays, some of their better run plays, so they can use them in the crucial situation. This is the crucial situation. You can fool New England easily. You pick up some yards, can maybe pick up a first down, and, burn more time off the clock and make the field goal a little bit easier because it would be about 40 yards right now, which is, still pretty automatic for Matt Bryant. But even if it's a 95% chance, you would like to, go with something that maybe has a 99% chance. However, what you're going to see happen, which is key, is actually with two players that are off screen right now. It's going to be a New England defensive back and another receiver. And watch how the defensive back is going to crash in, and he actually takes that offensive lineman out of the play, which allows for other New England players to run over and make a quick tackle. So, again, that's kind of the frustrating thing is, yes, Atlanta is very good at coming up with these run play designs, but at the end of the day, New England just has a lot of really talented players who can make plays. So, really, with the idea of, doing this, it's pretty difficult. Shanahan has another decision to make. This is one of the most important decisions in football history. All he could really have to do is run the ball 2 more times. They're going to get a field goal, and almost definitely, and go up 11, which is a pretty great situation to be in. You have just over 4 minutes left, and New England does have all 3 of their timeouts left. So even if you run the ball 2 more times, New England still has the ball with 3 timeouts left and a little over 2 minutes. So, they could potentially try and score a touchdown with, a minute and 30 seconds left, use all 3 timeouts to get a quick 3 and out, and then with about 40 seconds left, try to get in position to try and, maybe just have to throw up a Hail Mary, or, they don't need a field goal. So just trying to get there. It's not impossible, but that's a lot of things that they would have to do, and that would really turn it into the greatest comeback of all time, and then some, with how much they would have to do. Not a guaranteed win, but pretty close, actually. There's also the other option, the option that Shanahan is going to take. It's going to be man coverage once again, and this time they're not even screwing around with only double-teaming Julio if he's deep. They have someone playing deep on the top of the screen, and for Julio, it's 2 New England players covering Julio Jones. Cover number 11. That simple. Shanahan is going to say the same thing he said earlier. If we're going to lose this game, we're going to lose this by trying to get the ball to our best player, by letting the Matt Ryan to Julio Jones connection, the thing that has been working so well these past 2 seasons that he's been an offensive coordinator there. Let's hope it works one more time. We can get him into the end zone, take a shot there. We'll get a touchdown right away. Don't even have to deal with a potential missed field goal. Get the touchdown, go up 2 scores. And again, that is a pretty significant difference than running the ball 2 times and kicking a field goal. That does help you a pretty good amount. And also, when you think about the risk of this all, you're at the 23-yard line. So even if there's a holding penalty, well, now, it's going to be at the 33-yard line. That would be a 50-yard field goal. Pretty long, but, not the end of the world. And you would have a play to try to gain some yards back because it's 2nd down, not 3rd down. So there isn't a huge risk, this is definitely a decision that is going to get highly criticized even now, but at the same time, there is some real logic to it, but the problem with it is just the execution. Julio doesn't come close to getting open, and pressure gets to Ryan very quickly, so he doesn't have time to really do anything. I guess you could say the real flaw in this play is that they didn't have a quick check down that was totally designed just to be a check down route. I think maybe the logic for this kind of thing could have been just, you have 2 players in the backfield, maybe tell Ryan, listen, if pressure comes, immediately just throw it at one of their feet to make sure that this, doesn't end in disaster. But at the end of the day, it was just a poorly executed play, and, I think you could also say it was not the correct decision. But at the same time, okay, so that was worst case scenario, right? Terrible thing happened. Definitely not what you wanted. Worst play call ever in the history of the NFL, right? That's what everyone says. Well, there's still time left, There's and still, you have a third down. This is not the end of the world. And you're at the 35-yard line. So, this is a 52-yard field goal from here. So they still have an opportunity to try and pick up some yards right here, and that's what they're going to do. Just go with something that can pick up some yards. A play that'll never end in disaster, right? Let's play it simple. Shanahan saying, okay, maybe got too aggressive on that last one. Let's just play things simple right here. It's going to be a cover one play. We have a receiver running just a quick out, just a quick route to the outside right there. Nothing fancy whatsoever. This is something that's very simple and very easy to do. This will pick up some yards. It's Mohamed Sanu. He's very quick at cutting. He's always going to get open on a route like this. It'll pick up a few yards. Nothing too crazy. Again, low risk, high reward. Nothing else really has to be said. This makes some sense. And it works out. It works out perfectly. It was a great decision. It worked out perfectly. They get the ball to about the 25-yard line, so no harm, no foul. That's probably about what would have happened if, they just kicked the field goal, ran it twice and kicked the field goal anyways. So, yes, not the best decision there in terms of how it worked out, but at the end of the day, he recovered nicely. They recovered nicely, but wait 1 second. There is a flag on the field. Atlanta left tackle Jake Matthews right there gets called for holding. You see him right there. He just gets a little bit of a hold. You could even argue that's kind of a weak call, but, there is something there. It's in that gray area, and it ends up getting called a hold. And just like that, now they're out of field goal range. Just completely out of field goal range. I mean, you're at the 45-yard line. Are you really going to try a 62-yard field goal where if you miss, you're giving the Patriots great field position? No. But the play's not over yet either. I mean, the drive isn't over yet. It's you have a third down situation. Yet another third down situation. It's still third down, but you have an opportunity here. It's going to be simple here. They know Taylor Gabriel. He should have a good matchup. He's going up against Malcolm Butler, so maybe not as good of a matchup as, you would have liked, but this is probably their best matchup here. It's going to be one-on-one. He's cutting to the outside. There should be a window where Matt Ryan can make this throw, but it's just covered too well, and there just isn't any separation. Gabriel isn't able to make the play, and they're going to have to punt the ball back to the New England Patriots. A great opportunity ends up getting wasted, and this is probably the most talked about blown opportunity in NFL history. And, really, I mean, there was logic behind all of Shanahan's decisions. It didn't work out, so, he's going to get criticized. It probably was the wrong call. I mean, most people would agree it was the wrong call. I've, in the past, called it the worst call in NFL history. That might have been a bit hyperbole, especially after, really going through it and seeing the logic behind it. But it certainly was definitely not the correct decision I think most people would agree upon. But at the same time, it almost was. I mean, this was the kind of play calling that got them up in the first place. And he called such a great game. But because of one questionable call, now he's kind of the GOAT. However, it's not over yet. Not quite yet. This is a 28-28 game, so it's starting to become over, but it isn't over yet. There still is some time left, and there's still some time in regulation. So really what's going to happen throughout the rest of this regulation period is this. Atlanta has 52 seconds left and no timeouts. But, there's still an opportunity here. I mean, again, it was a bad kickoff return, so they have it at the 10-yard line. But at the same time, you just need a field goal. And we've seen in the past that with a guy like Julio Jones, he can go up and make a big play, and you can instantly get in field goal range just like that. So, first things first, teams are going to expect them to go something deep, so they're just going to do the opposite. It's going to be a cover 3 zone that they're going up against. They're just going to have a quick route shallow to try and, push everyone deep. You pick up some yards right away, and it works out pretty well. You do get a first down, although you aren't able to get out of bounds. So, you were able to get some yards, but you aren't able to stop the clock. But at the end of the day, there still is some value in that. You get down the field to where you're at least in position where you throw up a Hail Mary type play where you can potentially get some yards that way. And, they have the ball. There's about 40 seconds left now at this point. So with a first down now, this is what they're going to do. It's going to be essentially almost like a pick play type situation. You have a player who's going to be running deep. You also have a player who's going to be running sort of shallow towards the outside. So, these are two things where potentially a New England player could get fooled. But what's going to happen right here is actually something very fascinating. So Gabriel is running deep, and then you have Hooper running shallow. And For some reason, they're going to do the same thing they did last time. And to me, this is actually, you could make an argument that this is the worst call that Shanahan had of this game, where you see what's going to happen is that New England is all over this. But you also saw that the player who was deep, who ended up covering Gabriel, he actually was watching Ryan and came in. If, again, maybe I'm saying this is too much for him for Shanahan to predict, but at the same time, if Ryan made a pump fake and then threw the ball deep, really Gabriel would have been wide open. They could have had a go-ahead touchdown in the final minute, which would have been one of the more wild ways to end a Super Bowl. Again, it's hard to really blame them too much for not expecting to do that. But at the same time, because he made this shallow throw, now the clock is going to continue running. And so now they don't have as much time to prepare. They're going to have just 18 seconds left at this play. And so, they're just going to say, let's go deep here. They're going to have a man coverage type play. And those are going to be the routes that they're going to run. It's Hooper running deep on one side, Jones running deep on the other side. 18 seconds left, so you don't have a ton of time to really do too much. And also, this is now third down, not second down, because they had to spike the ball to stop the clock because of that last play. That last play really did stall this drive. Just not a great decision by Shanahan. But, again, hey, all you have to do is throw one up. Jones is on the bottom of the screen. You throw one up in his direction, he can potentially get open. So what he's going to do is create some contact at the line to try to gain some separation. He gets a little open, but the ball doesn't come his way. And it's kind of a questionable decision there as well. I mean, I thought the whole concept was, hey, if we're going to lose throwing the ball to our best player. And I'm pretty sure Austin Hooper was not their best player, even though he was pretty good. It was just kind of a questionable decision. And I feel like, why not give Julio one last chance to make a play? Really, I mean, honestly, what really got criticized the most from Shanahan was what he did, on the drive where he decided to not run the football. But far and away, what he did poorly on this drive, I think outweighs what he did poorly on the drive prior. I mean, what he did on the drive prior was tremendous until it wasn't. What he did on this drive was just an outright failure. It was bad, and this was the last play call Kyle Shanahan would ever make as an offensive coordinator. He ended up getting hired by the San Francisco 49ers to be a head coach, so a great opportunity for him, but, this was really a great opportunity as well that he kind of blew. I mean, you could argue that maybe, a lot of other things went wrong. I think the Dan Quinn of it all is definitely another thing that went wrong, but at the end of the day, he had an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. With a minute left, all they had to do was get a field goal. He wasn't able to get anywhere close. And quite frankly, I mean, that's something that you don't want to lose. And once again, the coin toss luck in overtime did not go Shanahan's way. There would be a coin toss. It would not land on what they wanted. They had to kick the ball. They never were able to run an offensive play. Matt Ryan, who was the MVP of the season, never got to touch the ball in overtime. Just a frustrating way for Atlanta to lose. But you know what? They had their opportunities, and it's hard to feel too bad for them because of it. Well, this is the story of, it's the Kyle Shanahan story. I'm talking about him. He is the main character in this entire series. I talked a lot about Dan Quinn, too, and the reason why I wanted to really make sure I mentioned him is because I actually think that his story is the real tragic one. I mean, spoiler alert for the final episode of this series, but what would actually happen is that really Shanahan would go on to go to another Super Bowl. He's still in a position where he can be very successful with the 49ers. It's not a terrible thing for him. But for Quinn, I mean, this was really it. They made the playoffs the following year and won a playoff game, but didn't really do too much after that and haven't made back to the playoffs since. And it's looking like he might be on his way out in Atlanta. Whereas, he was on top of the world. If they won this game, well, then Atlanta has now won a Super Bowl. He becomes the guy who gave them a Super Bowl ring. And on top of that, he now has basically his redemption for losing to the Patriots. So nobody can really hold that against him. He would have had 2 Super Bowl rings, one as a head coach. And because of the way this game went, he's now kind of the butt of a lot of jokes, even though he has won a Super Bowl himself. This was an opportunity for him to really get into greatness. And instead, it's just kind of just sad when you talk about him. He's kind of just become a meme at this point. So I think that's just such a crazy thing. He went from on top of the world to basically not even being in the NFL probably pretty soon. Just a crazy thing, and what a wild turn of events that is for Dan Quinn.